If you're watching this video on the NES YouTube channel, there's more information and useful links in the description below.
I've been working with NHS Scotland since 2006 as an employee. I think I started as a temp actually before then, coming in for holiday cover. I've had many roles within NHS Scotland. I've been project support, I've been a business support manager, I've then been in charge of people's staff development within the finance community. That grew and grew beyond the board I was working on to do a bit of a national role. Then I've been on secondment to frontline territorial boards, and latterly when the contact tracing started, then that was a whole new service that sprung up. I was away doing collaborative working, making that happen, onboarding all the contact tracing. And now landed with NES, a part of the leadership team there, running leadership programs about collaborative leadership and running national and internal coaching and mentoring programs. So as you've been hearing all week, there's no wrong path to your career. Everyone has lots of opportunities to learn things. And so what I'm going to share today about skills for collaboration is just some of my hints and tips from my own journey of what I've found just really supportive and helping me do that. Because the key to my success is not being to try and do it alone. It's to be working with others and energising the group to get things moving on. So what we're going to cover today is what do we mean by collaboration, and I'm going to share you my top 5 tips of how to do it well. I thought that would just be a practical way of sharing some of the skills and approaches I've found over the years that's really made it happen. But I'm also going to hold some space for you to do some self-reflection. And if you've not been accustomed to that, we're going to use a process called guided journaling. So just a heads up there, you will need a pen and paper to hand to make that happen. But I'll tell you the instructions for when we get to that and what to do. And that will be a timed exercise. So you'll have plenty of time to write down some of your reflections on what's been shared today. So let's get started. What do we mean by collaboration? So I'm sure at some point in your role, you've been asked to achieve a result working with others. Now, sometimes that's easy, as you may be working with people you know, or like-minded people, or perhaps people within your own team that you're accustomed to them, they're accustomed to your way of thinking and working, and you might be focused on achieving a similar goal. But as you work in more complex situations, you may be asked to work on projects or work with other teams or other boards, and may not have the same end goal as you, or they want to solve it in a different way, or have come from a different culture or a different way of working, and that can make things quite tricky. And it's a bit like, I don't know if you've worked with someone that's a very detailed person and another person likes working with the big picture and doesn't like the detail. And it can be really frustrating for both parties because neither feels really understood or heard. So what is it we can do that's different that means that we are working collaboratively? So for me, true collaboration is about creating those spaces for conversations. It's about making something different happen. So if you're creating those spaces for conversations, you're not talking at each other or you're not talking over each other. Something different is happening. And you're also harnessing the energy of the group to move their thinking beyond the problem state, because we all have a problem. And we're accustomed to the lots of problems that we encounter in NHS and across health and social care is there's never enough people or time or money. And so how can you spark people's interest to actually thinking of what they're trying to achieve, to move beyond the problem thinking into solution thinking and actually imagining and sharing a vision of success? And to do that, you really have to create that space and understand different people's perspectives. Harnessing their energy, their enthusiasm, so you're co-creating some solutions. So collaboration is all about co-creating the solutions in the group. So people have a hand on shaping and creating what's going to happen next. And guess what? Collaboration starts with you. I think that's been my greatest learning, that something has to shift in me to make something different happen. I need to own that. And so for yourself, if you want to work in this collaborative way, the first thing to notice about is what is your own patterns of behaviour. Maybe you're noticing if you've got a passion that really drives you to get things done, or you're really focus driven or outcome driven. Sometimes that enthusiasm and that passion can tip over into something unresourceful. And that can feel like you're pushing your ideas onto others. And that's where conflict can lie, because when something's being pushed onto something else, somebody has to be in right and somebody has to be wrong. And that's where you can get some difference of opinions shared in an unresourceful way. So to collaborate well, it takes individual, it takes you to set an intention to be another way, to have another purpose to play, another role to play as a facilitator of change rather than the doer of the actions. Okay, so let's have some time to consider what are your own patterns. So this is where we're going to do some self-reflective practice. So I'm going to ask you to grab a pen and paper, and I'm going to explain to you what this guided journaling is all about. So if you've never come across it before, it's a timed exercise. So I'm going to give you show you a question and give you a set amount of time to respond to that. And it encourages auto writing. So that means I want you to have your pen poised over the paper, ready to write. And as I read out and share the question on the screen, I just want you to respond to it, and I want you to just start writing immediately. Don't stop until the time is up. Don't try and edit anything that you're writing. Just let it flow. You're only going to have 1.5 minutes for each question, so it's not a long time at all, I promise you that. But the purpose is it allows your thoughts and sense making to just come out and flow through your pen, come out through your writing. And because you're not trying to stop and read it or polish it or do anything with it, it just keeps flowing out. And that encourages emergent thinking, and something new may come up for you. Okay, so if you're ready, I'm going to ask you to settle in your chair if that's where you're sitting. And have your feet firmly planted on the floor. And take a deep breath in. Notice any sounds in your environment around you. As you're breathing out, just let those distractions fall away. Set your intention to the task ahead. So just have another final breath in. Another final breath out. And here we go. So I shall read out the question. It'll appear on the screen, and I'd like you just to keep writing until you hear me read out the next one. What is your own experience of collaborating to date? Next question. What are you noticing that worked well about that? Next question. What could be even better? Okay, so that's the end of our first reflective space. So just notice what you're noticing when you've been auto-writing in response to those questions. So now I'm going to share my top tips of what supported me when I've been collaborating in all these different spaces. I was thinking about the best way to do this. I could have shared lots of theories and models, but I just wanted to make it quite practical and just something that you could take away right away and use tomorrow. So look out for things that resonate with you that you might add to your toolbox and use straight away. So my tip number 1, I think this is the most important. Don't try to do it alone. It is exhausting if you are trying to be the only one that's energizing a project or a group. and it's just through your own steam that you're trying to move something forward. At some point, you will run out of steam. So remember, we are asking you to take up another role, that you're to facilitate the change, that you're to encourage group movement. And so who are the people that you're going to involve? And so number one is collect your investors. And what I mean by that is anyone who has a vested interest in the outcome. And that means anyone who is part of the problem should be part of the solution. So that's if you've got a flow of work going through the department and it goes from one team to another into a senior manager and maybe an external person, it's not all quite working, then you should have a representation from all those parties as part of the group, because they are can all have some important information that could add to the process. And also seek out some divergent thinking. Don't always take on the person that thinks like you and works like you. Try and bring some diversity into it, because that can add to the whole process as well. Just get super curious about what matters to them and the way that they express themselves, rather than reacting to the way that they express themselves. So collect your investors. Number two, people love to share the solutions. They've been thinking about it for ages and they want to get their information over, their opinions over, and it's like, I think we should do this and I think we should do it that way. But actually, what you want to do is take the group back a bit, take a bit step, create that space to know the problem. So ask some curious questions to understand the different perspectives, because they might see something that you don't know. So start with the problems and what keeps that problem in place? What are the factors involved? Has that problem always been there? Or has it changed over time and got worse or better? Or is it a real life structure, a policy, a procedure, something that keeps it in place? Or is it a mindset? Is it a cultural thing? So really dig into the issues that are being raised, so you understand the factors behind it all, about what keeps the problem in place. And then start reframing those problem statements to like, how might we? Because that means keeping it with the group to come up with those different perspectives and different ideas. So start with the problem, don't rush to solutions. Number three, have a shared vision of success. So as I say, if we don't share the vision and we've all got a slightly different version in our heads of what we want to have happen, then that can cause problems when we're trying to work together. So have that expressed and really quite clearly in the group. So you can ask some questions like, what would you like to have happen? Especially if people are stuck in the problem state and have never imagined the future. That can move their thinking beyond problem thinking to what they'd actually like to achieve. And then you can contrast and compare if that's the same right around the group. And you can get that agreement of what you actually think is achievable as a group. And then how will they know they've achieved that? Because people can be really vague here and have some management speak about what they want to do, and it's all very conceptual. What will they be seeing or hearing that lets them know they've achieved that vision? And by doing that and spending that time to co-create that vision of success, that creates energy and momentum in the group. And it also makes sure that everybody is grounded and on the same page about what you're trying to achieve. So it's worthwhile to spend some time in doing that. Step number 4 is co-create the steps. So when you know what you're trying to achieve and you've raised those sort of issues and you know all the factors behind them, you'll have a list of all the things you want to address. So ask for each thing, what needs to happen for this issue to be addressed? What is their solution for this? And co-creating ideas means people have had a hand in shaping that solution, and so they're more likely to champion it. So you're creating buy-in to the solutions from the group. So that means you're not going to get any conflict or any pushback from it later on, because they've helped shape and mold the solutions as a group. And what matters to them has been listened to and heard, and they can see that that is being morphed out as you create the solutions. But make sure that each step is still working towards that shared outcome, that you're not going off and creating arms and legs that aren't directed towards that shared vision. So make sure that it's corralled in the right way. And then lastly, it's about then making it happen. So you know what you want to try and do, and you want to make sure that your instinct to get things done doesn't take over and that you put your name against all these actions. So avoid that doing instinct, keep the shared responsibility with the group. And who are the best resources to make things happen? So some people might be really interested in doing lots of things, but actually they're going to end up being a bottleneck in this. So make sure the people's skills and capabilities are clearly aligned to the action, and that there's a clear action plan about who's going to do what, when, and how that's going to make it happen. And then you've got a clear shared plan right across the group that people have bought into. So those are my top 5 tips of making it happen. And so now I'm curious as to how that's landing for you. So we're going to do some more reflective space now. So grab that piece of pen and paper again, and I'm going to ask you some more questions, and you can note down how this has landed for you. So if you're ready to begin, I'm going to give you the first question. What are you taking away from today? Next question. How can you put your learning into action? Last question. And who can help you? And that's our time up for the reflective practice. Wow, that goes so quickly, doesn't it? And so consider what's come up for you today and what I've shared in your reflective practice. How can you connect today's learning with what you already know, what you've been learning throughout this week, and how can you keep that learning going? We've barely scratched the surface on this topic, and so I'm going to signpost you to some more resources. On Tunas Learn, lots of information. So if you look under the Leadership and Management zone, it's one of our leadership capabilities is collaborating and influence, and so you can find more resources there. And Marsha's sharing the link in the chat for you just now. And also on the good practice area, if you search for collaboration, you come up with about 115 items, and there's lots of different learnings resources there, from 2 minutes to 30 minutes long. You will need an Athens password to access that, but the link will be in the chat again. And when the recordings come out, the links will also be in the transcripts that are supporting the recordings. So now's your chance to let us know how this session has landed for you. So there will be a word cloud pops up on your screen. We're just looking for an instant one-word feedback on how you're feeling, and it will appear on your screen and or appear in the chat. That's pretty cool. I've not seen this happening before, so it's lovely to see the words coming up. Thought-provoking, reflective, open-minded, engaged, interested, practical. Thank you so much for everyone, for Laura and Marsha's help in making this happen today. And I hope you have a wonderful week. There's so much on offer, and enjoy. So I'm going to say goodbye.